Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I was contacted by a battery company with the name of Timeusb. I'm sure that you've heard of it. And they asked me if I could review one of their batteries. So here it is. And you can tell by this box that it's not a 100 amp battery. It is a very small 50 amp Lipo4 12 volt battery. So how about we open this up and see what we got. Okay, in the box we have, first looks like we have some sort of informational pamphlet. There's a little zipper on here. All right, and looks like we have a product manual for a 12.8 volt 50 amp hour battery. Now we say 12 volt battery, but when it says 12.8 because that's the nominal voltage. It says it has a 50 amp BMS. Like I said before, it has a 12.8 volt 50 amp hour battery. The dimensions are 7.79 inches in length, 6.53 inches in width, and it is 6.69 inches in height. Looks like it has M6 bolts. So they're a little bit smaller than your regular 100 amp hour battery, and they are 12 millimeters in length. Let's see the general information. The operating voltage is again 12.8 volts. The charge voltage is 14.4, give or take 0.2 volts. Let's see, the maximum continuous load is 640. We'll be testing that to make sure it can hold that for, at least 5 minutes. Maximum continuous charge discharge current is 50 amps. So it can discharge and charge at a 1C rate. All right, and it looks like it just kind of goes through all the steps of what to do. Yeah, this is actually a pretty nice little manual. It's really good for beginners who really don't know anything about lithium-ion batteries, how to charge them, how to take care of them. This is a very nice little manual. It has a lot of information in it. Shows you how to do a series connection, how to do a parallel connection. It gives you a capacity chart, like a state of charge chart. Okay, well, yep, so there's the manual. It looks like a very beginner little operation guide. It even actually says on there for beginners. So Timeusb is really trying to get into the market of people that are just getting into the idea of solar and power storage. But this is really good. I like this. All right. This says tear me off. All right. Look at that. Here's all the bolts. Here's the M6 bolts and a couple of covers, which are actually I really like having these covers, so that's nice. All right, and then here is the battery. All right, look at that. I like this. This is really, it's fun, is what it is. It's not like your typical just plain old black battery with with nothing on it. It's a white battery with a blue top. It's got a big logo sticker on the front. You know exactly what you're getting. You can look at this from 20 feet away and say, oh, you have some Timeusb batteries? Okay, looking at this battery right out of the box, it's got these covers on here, which I really like. Look at that, they just twist off, exposing the terminals. And let's go ahead and open this up. Oh yeah, look at that. We got 2 sets of M6 bolts. And then we also have the terminal covers as well. So let's go ahead and put these on. And I like how they're 12 millimeters. That's nice and long. All right, and then these terminal covers would go just like, I'm not going to push them down all the way because I want to take them right back off, but they're form fitted. You can see that the inside of the cover is the same shape as the bolt itself. So kind of like that. Let's get these off. Because the first thing we're going to do is we're going to test to see what the voltage is of this battery straight out of the box. And the voltage is 13.18. 13.17, 13.18. That is exactly where you want it. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and charge this thing up so it is 100% full. And like the documentation said, it should be between 14.2 and 14.6. Charging it's going to be super easy. I'm going to use right here this Ardroit 30 amp charger. It is specifically designed for lithium iron phosphate batteries. So all you need to do is plug it in and connect the positive to the positive on the battery and the negative to the negative on the battery, and everything else is completely automatic. While this battery is charging up, there's a few things I want to tell you about it. First of all, the price. It is considered a budget-friendly battery or an inexpensive battery. I mean, people, you could say they're cheap batteries. I like to say that they are beginner-friendly batteries because they are so inexpensive. If you go and look on Amazon, or if you go onto Timeusb's website, I'll have links in the description of this video. You can see that at the time of this video, this battery is $169. Now, that is pretty inexpensive. For what you're getting 50 amp hours of lithium iron phosphate technology. Now, it's that cheap because of the fact that all it is a battery. You're not going to get Bluetooth. You're not going to get, you're not going to get heating pads inside of it. You're also not going to get cold charging protection. What you are getting is 50 amp hours. And that's really about it. There are other protections, and they're all the standard protections that lithium iron phosphate batteries come with. Like the over voltage protection, the under voltage protection, the high temperature protection. You're also getting over current protection and short circuit protection. Okay, and since this battery is lithium iron phosphate, you're looking at around 4,000 cycles. Now, that really does equate to about 10 years of cycling it every day from full to empty, full to empty. And Timeusb also offers a 5-year warranty on all of their batteries. So I really do think that this battery is great for the beginner because you have a 5-year warranty, you can cycle it every day, it has a lot of protections, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that add on the extra $50, $100, $150 that you get for the more expensive batteries. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Let's go ahead and let this charge up, and then we'll do a discharge test. Okay, well, I came back down after I went ahead and let this thing charge overnight. Not that it needed it, I just got tired and went to bed. But I came back down and I measured the voltage of the battery, and it was at 13.33, which I felt was a little low. So I went ahead and I switched the charger out, and now I'm charging it with this HTRC P10X2 charger. We're going to try to get this battery up to at least 14.2 to 14.4, so that way I feel like it's completely full, so that way we can do the discharge test. And once it got done charging with the HTRC P10X2, I went ahead and put it on my variable charger, and I set that charger to 14.36 volts, and I put it at 5 amps, so as soon as it gets full, the amps will get down to, we'll just get it down to less than an amp going into the battery, and then that way we know that this battery is fully charged up to 14.36 volts. All right, the battery is accepting less than an amp now, so we're going to go ahead and disconnect it. Turn off this charger. And now I'm confident that this battery has as much capacity as possible. So let's go ahead and do a discharge test. Okay, I've got the battery tester all connected up to the battery. And so all we need to do now is make sure and zero these numbers out by just holding this button down. There we go, everything's 0. And all we need to do now is turn up the amperage. And we're going to try to do a 10 amp test. So I believe that's going to be cranking it up all the way. Because a 10 amp test should take about 5 hours. All right, there we go. Timer is set, and the test has begun. Okay, so as long as everything works just fine, we'll be back in 5 hours, and we'll see what the results are. Okay, well, apparently this this battery tester does not like being powered by this variable voltage charger because it freaks out and says tips on there, and it stops the test. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to pretty much get a new plug, I guess, for this or something. Maybe one of those universal plugs. But for now, I'm going to have to charge the battery back up and go ahead and just do a regular test with a shunt and an inverter. So we'll do that. And so I'll get back to you as soon as I get it charged up and everything connected up. All right, I've got this battery charged back up. It's under an amp being pushed into the battery now, so it is completely full at 14.4. And so we are going to try to use this again because I realized that I could actually plug in a micro USB cord, and it's plugged into my variable power supply, which now, unless this thing is burned up and broken, it should work. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. Okay, all right. Okay, so I'll come back in an hour to make sure that this is still running, because before, after an hour, that's when I came down here and it had to air it out. So, yep. So either I'll see you in an hour or I'll see you in 5 hours. Okay, well, I came back down after an hour and the battery tester said tips again. So I went ahead and I just went ahead and repaired it. I think this should make it so it works just fine now. So yeah, I had to do that. It's irritating. So I am going to go ahead and do it the traditional way with an inverter and a shunt. When I get all that hooked up, I'll let you know. Okay, I have the battery charged back up to 14.4, and now I have a shunt connected to this monitor right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this 500 watt inverter to run basically a 10 amp load, which is right around 120 to 140 watts. Let's go ahead and hook it up and get this test started. Okay, the monitor is all zeroed out. Let's go ahead and turn on the inverter. Kilowatt shows 116 volts. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn on this switch. All right, so we're just going to stick with 13 amps. And you can see that our capacity is going up, which means that that's what's being taken out of the battery. And our voltage has already dropped down to 13.2. So this test will probably take between, I don't know, about 4 hours. So I'll come back in 4 hours and we'll see what our results are. All right, well, I was just over here connecting up this monitor to this 12 volt battery bank, and I heard the fan and the lights flickering off over there. That means that our capacity test is done. So let's go check out what our capacity ended up being. All right, and the grand total is, look at that, 51.2 amp hours. That is pretty good, 655 watt hours. And it took right at 4 hours to complete. So I must say, I'm pretty happy about that. I mean, they said that they would give us 50 amp hours, and it gave us over 50 amp hours. So the capacity test definitely is a pass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and charge this battery back up, And then we're going to do a load test to see if it can actually handle a 50 amp discharge, for about 5 minutes. So let's go do that. Perfect. All right, welcome back everyone. It is the next morning, and this 50 amp 12 volt battery is completely charged up to 100%. Right now it's sitting at 13.5 volts. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to see if it can hold up its claim that it can power basically 50 amps continuous discharge. So what that means is if you multiply 50 times 12, in layman's terms, you get 600 watts, because you get watts by multiplying the amps times the volts. So 12 volts times 50 amps is going to equal 600 watts. So what we're going to try to do is power a 600 watt load for about 5 minutes, and we're going to see what happens. Now, I just want to say that this type of inverter right here would actually be perfect for this type of battery, because this inverter only allows you to power up to 500 watts. So this inverter is perfectly sized for this type of battery. So maybe in the next video, we're going to go around and power up some stuff using this inverter and that battery, just to see what you can do with a 50 amp battery. But for this test, we need more than 500 watts. We need around 600. So you're going to want an inverter that can power 600 watts with really no problem. So what we're going to use is the Alpha 1500 watt inverter. This thing should be able to power a 600 watt load with no problem whatsoever. So let's go ahead and wire it up. Okay, and to wire up this inverter to this battery, all you need are a couple of cables. Now these cables are, they're 2-gauge cables. And I want to say that is probably right at perfect for a 1500 watt inverter, but this battery will not be able to power up to 1500 watts. But I always say you should make your cables the size of the inverter, not the battery, because it's just good practice. So let's go ahead and hook this up. And all we need to do is connect positive to positive and negative, because this is a shunt right here, but negative to negative. Okay, and when you are connecting an inverter, especially one that's over 1,000 watts, that's kind of my minimum. Once I get to 1,000 watt inverters, I start using a resistor to connect my final connection to my battery. Because once you get over 1,000 watts, you start getting a spark. So like 1,500 watts, you'll get a little bit of a bigger spark, but when you're talking 3,000 or 5,000 watt inverters, you can get a pretty substantial spark. So you want to just pick up a simple resistor like this and touch them together first for, depending on how big the inverter is, but I just say a few seconds for a 1,500 watt inverter. If this was like a 5,000 watt inverter, I would hold this literally for like 30 seconds, because I just like to be safe. All right, and now you shouldn't get any spark. Beautiful, that's exactly the way you want it. Let's get this washer over here. And the capacitors, because what that does is it charges the capacitors in the inverter. So once they're charged, they take a little bit of time to discharge, as long as the inverter is turned off. If you have the inverter turned on, you'll hear a little beep. And you shouldn't hear anything really from the inverter when you do this, because the inverter should be off. But if the inverter's on, those capacitors basically discharge immediately. So when making your final connection, always make sure your inverter is turned off. So now that that's all wired up, let's go ahead and turn the inverter on. There we go. And what we're going to use for our load, let's go ahead and scoot this whole thing back. All right. See, and what's also nice about this battery, it's only 11 pounds. I mean, you can see that I could just move this thing around with no problem. That's another benefit of having a small battery, is even though it's 50 amp hours, and that really is the same usable capacity as a 100 amp hour sealed lead acid battery, which weighs like 60 pounds. So that's a huge benefit. 11 pounds compared to, 60 pounds. Anyway, what we're going to use for our load is this New Wave induction oven. And we're going to put it on the 600 watt setting, and we're going to see if this battery can power it for 5 minutes. I want to be able to monitor the DC side and the AC side. So we're going to go ahead and just put this watt meter on there. Plug in the induction cooktop. Plug this in. All right. And I'm just going to grab some water and we're going to boil some water. Okay, so let's turn the induction cooktop on. Get it powered up. Let's go ahead and put this on watts. Right now it says we're not using any watts. Oh, yeah, just 1.1. Okay, let's put this here. Set this to 600 watts. So let's put our water in here. And then what I'm going to do is set a timer. Hopefully everybody can see that. Okay, so we got water in here. We got our timer. We got our inverter. We got our battery. So let's go ahead and start it up. And start. The induction cooktop is actually running at 620 watts. Let's see what our DC battery says. Yeah, it says it's pulling 700 watts, which is 56.1 amps. So we're actually over what it is rated for right now. But we're going to see if this can power this for 5 minutes. And I wouldn't really be too upset if it didn't, but right now it is running it just fine. And I just noticed this, I never touched any of these buttons besides the watt button right here, but it's actually on medium high. So I don't know if that would really make a difference because it is set on the 600 watt option. But once it gets past 5 minutes, we'll kind of mess with it a little bit. All right, there you have it, 5 minutes. And it's been working just fine. This monitor still says 56.6 amps. It's pulling almost 700 watts. So let's see what happens. Let's go ahead and turn this off. Let's see what happens if we pump it up to 900 watts. Now this battery has over amperage protection, so it should shut off pretty soon after we switch it to 900 watts. So let's see what happens. All right, and now you see the wattage going up. It's at 830 over here. It's pulling 86 amps now. 1 kilowatt. Okay, this shouldn't be working. Voltage has dropped down to looks like 11.9. But it's pulling 900 watts now. Actually, it's pulling 1,000 watts. So it's pulling double what it should be. Which means, should we go up to 1,300 watts and see what happens? Let's go ahead and do it. Ready? Oh God, I'm scared. I mean, we're getting to the point where our inverter might blow up. 1,300 watts, there it is. We're pulling 1.1 kilowatts. we're pulling almost 100 amps. It's 97 amps right now. Let's see if we can get 100 amps. Oh my God, 120 amps. The voltage is at 11.4. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. Our water is actually starting to boil. So I'm turning this off. I truly, even though I love the fact that it pulled over 100 amps for, a good 30 seconds, I don't know if it should have. That's what kind of worries me a little bit. See, and that is another reason why you should always use wiring that is made for your inverter, not for your battery. Because if I were like, oh well, this is only a 50 amp battery, so I could use 6 gauge cable or 8 gauge cable or whatever it is. I think it's 8 gauge cable can handle 50 amps, possibly. You might need to update me on that. But let's just say 6 gauge cable. 6 gauge cable is not made for 100 amps, I know that. And that battery was pulling 100 amps. So that's why you don't want to size your cable to your battery, but size your cable to your inverter. Okay, so what do I think of the Timeusb 50 amp hour 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery? I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't think this thing was gonna pass any of the tests that we just performed. I didn't think it was gonna get up to 50 amp hours. I definitely didn't think it was gonna be able to power over 600 watts, let alone 700, let alone 1,000. So this thing actually passed everything, and look at this. I mean, and it's 11 pounds. I mean, this thing's tiny for what you get out of it. And I must say, the only drawback that I can see from this battery is that it kind of failed the over amperage test. I mean, that BMS should have shut off after 600 or 700 watts. When you're talking that thing can pull double the amperage capacity for over 30 seconds, that's actually kind of questionable. But, I mean, that's not really a bad thing to have. Having too much power coming out of your batteries is sometimes good and sometimes bad. Because the good part is that if you ever need that extra boost for just a few minutes, it can handle it just fine without the whole thing blowing up. But if you sustain that, that's when your battery overheats, your BMS burns up, and your battery is completely shot. So even though this did power, a 1,000 watt load, 100 amp load, I would not recommend that. Get a bigger battery or get multiple of these batteries in parallel in order to run those higher wattage loads. But overall, I am very happy with this battery. It passed all those tests, and it's got the capacity of what it claims. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions about how I tested this battery or anything else about it, please leave them in the comments. In the description, I'm going to have a purchase code if you go to their website, and it will give you an additional 4% off. And this battery is only $169 right now. So that additional 4%, that's, I don't know, what, $8? So, I mean, you're looking at a battery for around $160 in the time of this recording. So that's an amazing price for what you get. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. You all have a great day. Bye-bye.